Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Body Electric 2. I'm so excited to have my new friend, Paul, here to discuss this really big topic about how frequencies can be delivered through quantum entanglement in drinking water. And there's so much information and so many angles that we can take this water conversation, right? There's a lot of information every month coming out on how we can use and harness the power, the healing power of water to help heal our bodies and prevent illnesses. And I know you have a very interesting and really informative and really effective lens where you see water as a healing modality. And so we'll just dive in. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So you talk a lot about how water can modulate our immune function and really help to create balance in our gut microbiome. So can you tell us your thoughts around that, Paul?
Absolutely. So in repairing the gut, this is critical for most of the population. I really believe that a very high percentage of the population have, to one level or another, a dysfunctioning gut. So the biome, the terrain has been changed, whether it has been through chemical interaction, pesticides, or what have you, or antibiotics, or what have you, stress, heavy metal, whatever it is. It is typically a lifestyle choice, and in some cases, obviously, life-threatening situation with a bacterial infection, which would cause them to get an antibiotic. Hopefully, that's the only reason they're using an antibiotic, right? But the reality is, once an antibiotic has been taken, it switches the polarity of the gastrointestinal tract to a positive electrical charge. And the problem with that is we now have aerobic bacteria, which has food cravings that are different than anaerobic microflora. So when we have aerobic, then we want sugar, carbs, and things like that because those bacteria want different types of foods. When we have anaerobic microflora in the gut, then we have cravings or desires for whole foods and vegetables and things like this. And the reason is because anaerobic microflora are designed to convert fiber-rich foods and foods that have short chain fatty acids, medium chain fatty acids into hydrogen gas and other gases that really help the body. So once you have the polarity of the gut flipped to positive, the fastest way to restore gut function is to change the epithelial tissue or the lining of the gut to a negative electrical potential. And the perfect is anywhere around negative 300 to negative 400 millivolts of electrical potential. And once we do this, we have studies that show that what will happen when you get the tissue itself to a negative 300, negative 400 millivolts, it will selectively stimulate anaerobic microflora rapidly. So you've effectively changed the terrain or the biome so that the aerobic bacteria no longer enjoys living there, the anaerobic does. And there should always only be 1% to 4% aerobic bacteria versus 96% roughly of anaerobic. But when we switch the polarity, the opposite occurs, and anxiety, depression, all kinds of things, improper food cravings happen. But most important, without anaerobic microflora, the immune function that is typically in the gut, 60 to 70% of our immune function is based on the gut bacteria being proper. So we lose that as well. So again, very strong argument for changing the gut biome and terrain. And in my opinion and history, the fastest and easiest way to do that is to change the electrical potential. So how to facilitate that? In the water machine that I developed, the water comes out at a negative 450 millivolts of electrical potential, opposite of other types of waters that have a positive electrical charge. We're doing an antioxidant negative electrical charge. And when you drink the water and it goes through the stomach, the duodenum or duodenum into the small intestine, it begins to change. That electrical potential absorbs into the intestinal tract and changes that. And you literally selectively stimulate anaerobic microflora within hours to days. And many people that have, let's say, gluten and dairy intolerance, they have reported within a couple of weeks they no longer have inflammation when they're eating these types of foods. So it's a huge changeover in the gut. I hope, and so that's that's how to do that, in my opinion, quickly.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And the theme has been running through these conversations around, typically in a healthy environment, there's more of a negative charge. So we've heard that in, in other conversations. So that is laying kind of the groundwork for people to understand this. And, you're educating me. And I guess I maybe just overlooked this or didn't understand it to this percentage difference that a healthier microbiome in the intestinal tract is more anaerobic than aerobic. So that's
right.
Quite interesting. And then you mentioned also, Paul, how anaerobic bacteria, some produce this hydrogen gas. And so can you talk a little bit about what hydrogen gas in the gut, like anything that how that can be promoting towards health? Because I know there's a lot of people thinking, with SIBO and everything like that, how it could be potentially causing symptoms as well.
Yeah, so our bodies, if they're functioning the way they were designed and created to function, we are supposed to be producing 10 to 12 liters of hydrogen gas per day in our gastrointestinal tract. Now, this only happens if we have the proper gut bacteria and we're eating foods that are fiber rich, which is whole foods, and foods that are broken down into short chain fatty acids or medium chain fatty acids. When we're eating a diet that's appropriate, which has those things in it, then we have these amazing bacteria called hydrogen trophs that are part of the anaerobic microflora family. And what they actually do is convert fiber into hydrogen gas, and they consume that as their energy source. So what's really interesting, it's a beautiful story. The bacteria in the gut create their own food, or what we call energy source in medicine. 30% of the hydrogen produced in the gut is consumed by the bacteria itself as an energy. That's their food. So 70% of the hydrogen goes into the body to reduce oxidation and to modulate pathways. So whether it's NRF1, NRF2, SIRT1, any of these telomerase, any of these kind of things, enzyme actions in the body, there's so many different things. Ghrelin secretions, which we'll talk about for neurologic issues. There's so many different things, over 200 biomolecules, which really covers the entire body, have been identified as regulated by hydrogen gas. Not a certain amount, just the fact that hydrogen gas is in the body. So again, when we have gut damage, we're not producing hydrogen like we should. And so that's why I had to create a machine that separates water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen and delivers the hydrogen, the H2 molecule, to the body, because that's what it's missing. And at the same time, we can repair the gut, as we just talked about, through electrical potential with that same water. So that's why I did what I did, is so many people have oxidative stress and inflammation, which is the leading cause of disease. Doesn't matter what disease, there's so many to choose from. But the fact is, if we have oxidative stress and inflammation, then we will get a disease. Well, hydrogen's job primarily was to reduce oxidation, keeping it in a normal range. And so when you lose the ability to produce hydrogen naturally in our gut by eating food and fermenting that food 3 times a day, that fermentation brings hydrogen gas. When we lose that ability, our immune function is largely lost. And so we might only have 20 or 30% immune function, which makes a lot of sense. If we look at autoimmune and we look at other diseases that are on the rise, it's because our gut is not functioning properly. So again, the primary role of hydrogen is to reduce oxidation and not have us having oxidative stress and inflammation, but to keep that oxidation in a healthy level, which is life-sustaining. But also, neurologically, when we have hydrogen in our gut or in our stomach, it will selectively stimulate ghrelin. So everyone has heard of leptin, but most people don't understand ghrelin, which we call the hunger hormone, not because it makes us hungry, but because when we are hungry, that hormone is released. But ghrelin goes to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the brain stem to increase cognitive function, change plasticity of brain tissue, to increase cognitive function, so actual brain function. And so there are many studies on hydrogen affecting autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, bipolar, schizophrenia. I mean, on and on it goes. What happens when we lack that hydrogen production, we also lack the ghrelin secretions, and we end up with neurologic complications or diseases.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a very foundational mechanism to correct in order to, no matter what anyone's suffering from, and so, I understand this, but I'm sure some people will be thinking out there, okay, so we need hydrogen gas. Okay, we need a healthy gut microbiome, right? So part of your goal is to correct that through electrical potential. But why doesn't just normal water deliver hydrogen that gets converted into potentially gas to help reduce the oxidation and inflammation in the body? Is that, is there any insight into why we can't just use water alone?
Oh, that's a great question. There's no hydrogen gas in water. You have H2O, which is now a liquid. It's no longer a gas. So you started with H2 and O gas, and when they combine, they make H2O, which is a different element, and it's water as a liquid, not a gas anymore. So in our machine, we're actually separating 1 part per million of water molecules back into their gas forms, hydrogen and oxygen. We put oxygen back to the environment, and we dissolve the H2 into the water. So in the water coming out of our machine, you have H2O liquid, but you also have H2 gas dissolved into that liquid as well. And that's how it gets into the body. But you do not have hydrogen gas dissolved in plain water. No matter how you filter it or what have you, you don't have it. And lakes and rivers, you can. There are places on the earth in the United States, Lourdes, of course, healing waters, river in India, they have been found. So you have certain very small number, but you do have it occurring in nature. In Japan, for instance, Mount Fuji, you have certain places on the planet where there are naturally occurring water with small amounts of hydrogen gas. And we believe that happens through basalt reactions. In other words, metals that are in the water that can be doing similar to what electrolysis would do. We also have organisms that could be eating and releasing hydrogen as a byprocess. But we do know there are places on the earth where hydrogen water naturally occurs. And so again, everything that I'm doing is simply to mimic either your human body, gut function, or nature in water. And all of these places on the planet where hydrogen water naturally was occurring, for millennia, people have been going there to get healthy and better. And these are all the healing waters in Mexico and France and India. People used to lay in the river, and they finally figured out there was hydrogen gas because it would help with skin issues. So funny enough, we didn't know why, but people have been experiencing healing waters for many years. And I'm not saying that hydrogen is the only thing in those water. I think there's light. I think there is visible light frequencies that are in the water. I think there's also hydrogen. There's a number of things. But the thing that's beautiful about water, it's an amazing vehicle for frequencies, for light, for electricity potential, all kinds of things, water and information for that matter. Water can carry information as well. So it's a very incredible element that I don't think we fully understand, but we know more today than we did 1,000 years ago. But I hope that helps people understand that, naturally you can get this, but we're just making it where you don't have to climb Mount Fuji.
Which is great, right? More accessible. And that's great. So just understanding, obviously, hydrogen gas is very different from, just the liquid state of H2O. And
Right.
then it sounds like the primary biological driver in the physical body that creates the hydrogen gas is really the microbes in the gut. Is there any other area of the body or any other microbiome in any other part of our body that you know of that creates hydrogen gas, or it's really primarily the gut?
I did see a study out of Australia that melanin,
Oh, interesting.
interestingly, in your body, if you get into trouble, like maybe you're stranded in a desert and you're close to death or something. This would be, I could see this being a great thing. 60 to 70% of our body is water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about hydrogen as an energy source. If we could access that water, but particularly the hydrogen molecules within the water of our body, wow, if we can convert that into energy, we would have a tremendous energy store, right? If 3/4 of our body weight was water, which it is, or should be. Well, there was a study out of Australia that showed that melanin can separate water molecules and get that hydrogen, but the body only utilizes this a really critical need. So it's very interesting to think about that and how amazing our body is. But yes, that is another thing that I have read and come to understand, but it's not something that's going to happen every day. Typically, the way it should happen is we should convert food into hydrogen as it ferments in the gut, and this would be the most normal process of that happening. So
Great. And again, I just want to share this information in the backdrop of other conversations that are going on in the summit. And we talk a lot in the summit about exclusion zone water, which is this other phase of water. It's H3O2.
Yeah.
And so how and what is your experience or perspective of the relationship rather with hydrogen water, hydrogen gas, and exclusion zones in the body?
Well, number one, I love Jerry Pollack. He's a great man. We know each other. We communicate. There, I can't go into it, but there's a project we may be working on with our hydrogen, our device, and some other stuff. But he's a brilliant man, and I'm a huge fan of his and his work. In our hydrogen module, we do create exclusion zone water, and we always have. And that's a small layer of water that is produced. But as he said in his findings, that the body produces exclusion zone water itself around cells and within body because of some really high voltages that occur in the body that are really not fully understood yet. But they have found and believe, Jerry does, that exclusion zone water is created in the body where it's needed. So it's a very interesting scientific, and I've been in multiple conversations over the last 3 months with them, their team, in trying to figure out and elucidate really what exclusion zone water can do in the body from a health perspective. We understand as a filter, it can be used where you could have contaminant-free water. We understand where our electrodes are in our devices. We do create exclusion zone water a certain distance out from those electrodes. And we do change the electrical potential of the water, and we do change the electrons in the water, negative electrons that are in our water, which power the body, mitochondrial function, what have you. So we're very interesting how similar what we're doing is, and how beautiful it will be in future to work together on things. And so, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Jerry's and all the work that he's done. Just a brilliant, wonderful man. So
yeah, no, thank you. And I just it's exciting, right? There's a lot of information still to understand from a research perspective. I know that from a clinical perspective and an anecdotal perspective, all the health benefits we see in practice and with patients when we give them these tools. And so, no, I'm excited for that collaboration. I'll have to interview you both when you guys figure out what you find out. So then, Paul, so how does one, I mean, how would you suggest a person really implements or has hydrogen water in their life? Do they drink it all day long? Do they have just a cup or two a day and that makes them healthy? Can they put electrolytes in the water? Does that kind of mess it up? Just some kind of practical applications of the hydrogen water.
Great questions. You can add supplements to the water. You can use the water for green drinks. You can use it for anything. You're not going to dislodge much of the gas. There's plenty of room in water to put other stuff and fit it all in there. That's no problem. Utilizing it in that way is wonderful. As far as getting hydrogen, we're the largest in the world when it comes to hydrogen water products. And I'm the one that started the industry back in 2008 and 2009. but we have multiple mechanisms at different price points, all the way from $50, $50 up to $5,000, where people can get what they want and have it. We have little rechargeable sport bottles. We have pitchers that hold a half a gallon at a time. I mean, we have drops. We're the only company in the world that has liquid drops that will create hydrogen water. We also have tablets. Many companies have that. There's nothing special there. But the drops are special in that it's much cleaner and it's easier to use. So we have multiple mechanisms. Of course, my favorite is our machine, and I developed the machine so that it was really inexpensive, 15 cents a gallon to get water. We don't need to drink it constantly. Intermittent exposure would be the best. And really, I'm a fan of mimicking our body, what it does naturally. So typically we would eat 3 times a day, and we would ferment food 3 times a day, and we would get hydrogen into our system 3 times a day. So I would recommend that people get hydrogen water 1 to 3 times a day. That's fine. And you having intermittent exposure is better. You wouldn't want to put an IV and put it in somebody, obviously, because the body would ignore it at that point. But having it 3 times a day is excellent. We need to keep in mind that you don't need high quantities of hydrogen. It's actually small amounts of hydrogen that does really well for our body. It's much better. Mm-hmm. They have done studies with cancer, for example, where you have, X amount, and then you do 8 times the amount. And really there wasn't much of an increase in the blood. Even though you increase hydrogen levels by 800%, there was only a 25% increase in the blood when you added 800% more hydrogen. So what we have learned through study is that the body just needs small amounts of hydrogen, because the hydrogen itself is not doing the heavy lifting. The hydrogen is modulating or giving direction or regulating pathways. So the fact that it's there, it's modulating and regulating. It's not about quantity. The only pathology that has been found is rheumatoid arthritis, and there is a dose dependency a little bit to there. It just means if you want it to go away faster and have every joint in the body healed, then you can give the body more hydrogen. But we need to understand that hydrogen is a gas. It's the smallest. It's number 1 on the periodic table. It's tiny. It can go anywhere. And the reality is you're only going to have it in your body for a half an hour to an hour. So you can put as much hydrogen as you want in the body. You're going to breathe it out. And so whatever you used in that half an hour to an hour is all that you got. You're going to breathe the excess out. So trying to think somehow that we need to have more and more and more higher concentration of hydrogen is not appropriate. It's just a small amount of hydrogen being in the body. In fact, they did studies on Parkinson's, and hydrogen stimulated ghrelin secretions only at 0.1 parts per million. Mm-hmm. So the tiniest amount of hydrogen in the body stimulated ghrelin secretions to go to the brain and change the brain. And it was a tiny 0.1 parts per million of hydrogen, when our machine produces 1 part per million, 10 times that. So we don't have to get hung up on how much hydrogen. We just need to get it in our body at least 1 to 3 times a day. And what's nice about having the machine is not only have you filtered the water of all the contaminants, heavy metals, pesticides like glyphosate, bacteria, viruses, all kinds of things, plastics. I mean, there's so much stuff in water. You definitely want to filter your water. But first we filter it, then we add the hydrogen. And then as a last step, we add frequencies if people want to. We have a very, very specific device called synergy resonance technology that adds frequencies into the water as a last step if people want that. They don't have to, but it's an amazing science.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I didn't realize that filter does that. And so you mentioned already that water can hold and store information. It can deliver frequencies. For those who might be new to this idea, can you explain what we're talking about, the application of putting frequencies in water?
Yes. So, I mean, there's been people, and they've been scrutinized for sure, like Dr. Emoto, Missouri Emoto, before he passed away, did a lot of interesting studies. And again, he's been scrutinized up and one side, down the other. But He did show, if nothing else, he showed that water does have a reaction to different frequencies, whether it comes from music, from words, from intention, whatever it is. Water does react or change based on different frequencies, whether it be from music or intention or words or what have you. And whether it can be duplicated is a different story, but the fact is there was a difference, right? So we'll just stick with that. We also need to understand that our body is a big glass of water, right? I mean, we are 60 to 70% water. So if it's true that water changes structure or changes behavior or whatever based on different types of music or sound or words, then what's happening to us if we're a big bottle of water or a big glass of water, if you will, what would happen to the water in us if we're saying unkind things to other people or they're saying them to us, or we're having different intentions that are inappropriate? So when I talk about frequencies, some people get a little bit weirded out, but let's be honest, every one of us uses frequencies in our daily life. When we shake hands, which I know no one's doing right now, but I am, but when you shake hands with someone or you hug someone, you feel something. And most people do, not everybody, but most people feel something. And sometimes it's a good something, and sometimes it's a concerning something where you go, oh, well, that's a different, right? And I think a lot of times you may hug someone or you may shake someone's hand or even touch them and you're like, oh, so that's really good. Like, I like that person. I want to hang out with them more because they feel good, right? And other people are like, whoa, what's going on there, right? Oh, and then if people are like, I don't get that, I would say this. If someone's angry at you and they're yelling at you or they're saying something to you, you can't tell me you don't feel something. when they're yelling or angry at you, you feel that intention, especially the closer they are to you. But this is the kind of energy I'm talking about that can affect us. And what we know is that water has an ability to carry with it frequencies or energy. And sometimes people put herbs in water, what we call tinctures. Sometimes people make teas and they have a different feel because they might have different medicinal purposes or what we might call a remedy, right? So this has been happening for thousands of years, from the time we were tribal people to today. And we can use flowers, we can use different things that will change water to carry with it whatever that herb had. But the difference with water is if we put a herb on our skin, it takes far more effort for whatever that energy and that benefit is to get into our body because it has to go through our ethereal body. But when you drink water with a frequency in it, it's now inside of you. You don't have to get through the ethereal body. So I have found, and medicine has found, and science has found, that water does a very, very good job of carrying energy or frequency with it. And so we have utilized that to be able to impart frequencies or formulas into water, kind of like a homeopathic remedy or what have you. And we can impart that into the person. Now, we don't make claims about this, but I'll give you an example. One of our options people can choose is common parasite elimination. And actually, Hilda Clark, if anyone knows who Hilda Clark is that's listening, she was a brilliant lady, I think. And she developed for us the formula for parasite elimination and autism, for instance, that we utilize in our system. And so we can give people a glass of water, and we have many people, not everyone, but many people that report, whoa, within an hour, I was in the bathroom eliminating parasites. That's pretty amazing, right? That you could take water out of a machine, hand it to someone, they drink 6 ounces of water, and within an hour, they're in the bathroom, and for the next day, they're eliminating parasites out of their system. Some would say, oh, that's just, whatever, but I would say that's pretty interesting that you can accomplish that. Now, you can also take humic acid. You can do other stuff. You can make detox programs with different herbs and things that will cause that. What we have done is taken all of the beauty of those naturally occurring elements that would cause your body to want to eliminate parasites because the parasites are no longer interested in being in your body, is really what it is. And we have simply just utilized water as a delivery vehicle for those frequencies or energies. And that's how our system works. What's different from anything else, because there's a lot of systems out there that provide energy to the body. What's different about ours is that we don't require electricity, Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth for the device that's in our machine. We use quantum entanglement. And some people are like, wow, that sounds cool. And it does sound cool. Quantum is a cool word. And quantum entanglement is even more cool, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But if you are skeptical, you can Google quantum entanglement studies on Google, and it will come up with a bunch of studies that will blow your mind, where science is looking, and you've probably heard in the news over the last 8 months, even during all this craziness, that science is starting to really utilize quantum entanglement to affect things at large distances and short distances. And so it's a very beautiful science that's not fully understood yet, but it's a beautiful science. Well, we use that in our water machine. We have a device in our water machine that water flows through, and it receives information from 2 servers we have in the world, one in Texas in the United States and one in England, the country of England. And they send through the air, much like a cell phone, you can send information through the air. We're using a very similar technology that's wireless, but we just don't require electricity on the receiving end. That's because we're not sending back a message. We're just receiving. And so we can send one direction without requiring electricity on the other end when we're not sending back an answer. And so our device works very similar with a wireless technology. We just don't require electricity, Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth. But you can go to a phone, like I just showed you, and you can choose what formula, whether it be eyes or lungs or gallbladder, pancreas, kidneys, emotional balance, chakras, premenstrual, whatever you want, XY chromosome. We haven't released that, but we do have. But the point is, you can choose what you want. And within 90 seconds, that's what's going to come in your water. In addition to being clean, in addition to having hydrogen, in addition to having negative electrical potential, it'll also have these frequencies going to your eyes if you choose eyes, or what have you, cardiovascular, muscle and bone, all these kind of things. And so it's an amazing technology. And adrenals, imagine being able to drink water and having your adrenals be strong seconds later. This is what people are saying happens to them.
Wow. So the quantum entanglement is basically using that principle to deliver the frequencies in the water so that people could use basically frequency applied medicine to help increase energy or increase health and healing in a specific organ system. That's wild. I didn't know that the filter did that. So a whole nother aspect. We talk about frequencies and frequency medicine. I had even in my previous Body Electric summit, Carolyn McMakin with frequency specific microcurrent, and there's just like a lot of different technologies and tools to help optimize the resonant frequencies of our organ systems in our body so that we're in a healthier state. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, the one and the one thing that we did that kind of went beyond anything else, because Rife technology has been available forever, right? I mean, Rife has been out there, and that's simply just frequencies, no information. So when we take a plant, yes, there's frequency, but there's also what you might call a life force energy, right? And so there's a difference when you eat a food versus just taking the frequency from a food, right? And so there's a life force energy there. When this technology was being developed, the gentleman who was instrumental in doing that was an intuitive individual who the company that he owned and his family, his grandfather started, was in recording equipment for music. They're the number one highest quality in the world for recording instrumentation for concerts and for recording studios. So you're talking about high-end equipment that would pick up frequencies, right? That's the world he was in. And he told me this story. He says, one time I was just sitting there in my office and I'm looking at what we recorded at a concert. And he asked the other engineers, what's this other information that we always disregard? And they said, we don't know. We don't know what that is, but we just chop it off and it's gone. So imagine you're in a concert, you have the recording equipment, and you make a CD, right? A compact disc, and the music is all there. But what's not there? So what he figured out is that other part that they normally weren't capturing, he figured out what it was because he was able to record it. He figured out how to digitize it and how to play it through speakers. And guess what they heard? Nothing. It was the feeling of the concert. So their equipment actually picked up the feeling. Because, I don't know if you've ever been to a concert. I assume you have. But anytime you go live music, man, is there a feeling in that room, right? Everyone is there for one purpose, and the music is there. Oh, my gosh, the feeling of the room is incredible. You don't get that when you play a CD. You get the music, but you don't get the energy, the life of the party, so to speak, right? So he said, holy cow, I was able to capture the energy of the room, the feeling in the room. And that is how we were able to take plants and herbs and things, tinctures, flowers, Bach flowers, all these kind of things, and capture the entire essence of that, not just the frequency. And that's what's a part of synergy resonance technology, is the life force energy. And I've explained the difference to some people. Like, what if I showed you my wedding video when I got, the reception? Like, I was at the reception, and you might get verklempt. You might go, oh, he looks so sweet and young, because it was 27 years ago. And so you might say, you look so cute and like a baby, right? and you guys look so cute. And they go, oh, that's such a sweet event. And they might even, like I said, get emotional. But then if I take that same person and I show them their wedding video for the reception that they had, what's going to be the difference for them? Well, they are taken back to the very event and they're reliving it again, right? So the feelings are all going to be right back to what that was. And so I would say that by us figuring out how to grab the entire energy of the plant, just like you can draw a bridge back to an event and relive it in your mind, we can draw a bridge back to that plant, and you can experience the entire plant and all of the energy of the life of that plant. It's a big difference, and it's something that people do feel. And so that's where the difference would be, because there's tons of frequency devices, there's tons of that, but just like a tincture has with it a lot more, and it's very powerful, our technology has more than just frequencies.
Wow, that's incredible. And that, those are great examples to bring this complex, topic
Right.
to light. So no, thank you. So Paul, I want to switch gears for a moment, if you
Sure.
will let me. You have this incredible, company and incredible, products that you give people to help lead healthier lives. And, we think of course, hydrogen gas. You've educated us on hydrogen water, how that can really promote health and healing by decreasing inflammation and oxidation and all of that, oxidative stress rather. And so, there's obviously a lot of concern around EMF exposure in modern day. And through my studies, there's so many mechanisms, right, of how EMF is detrimental to our health. But I think, it is decreasing our electron reserves and decreasing our ability to deal with oxidative stress. And so obviously hydrogen water can be a tool, in my opinion, to make us more resilient to EMF. And then you've also have different tools and devices to help mitigate EMF in people's environments. So can you just maybe touch on if you feel the same way, if hydrogen water can help with resilience against EMF, and then also what what other things you have to help support people in their home.
Absolutely. And yes, hydrogen can have a protection against radiation. And we know this because NASA used hydrogen water in space with the astronauts for cosmic radiation. So we know that hydrogen has a buffering capacity and a protection mechanism against radiation. So absolutely, that's there. Now, to go beyond that and to really protect people that are electrosensitive. So if you're just a normal person walking around who doesn't feel Wi-Fi and uses their phone and practically, puts it up against their head all day long, you're not feeling effects of the radiation, but I can promise you are having effects, cell membrane issue. There's other things that happen from a cellular function perspective. However, if you're not perceiving that there's a difference, believe it or not, there is a segment of the population that can feel pain and experience pain and headaches and significant issues in their body by simply going to a cafe and someone having a cell phone a few tables away, or having a television in their house, or a refrigerator for that matter. So RF frequencies, EMF frequencies, they do affect them differently. Now, my hypothesis is that their immune function is very low in their body. And as you pointed out, their electron reserves are extremely low. Their mitochondrial function is low. And so they cannot combat these things as well, maybe as other people. But we do have a technology. I did not develop this technology like I did the water. One of my dearest friends and practically family to me is a gentleman by the name of Hagen Thiers. And he lives in Germany. And as a young man, around 14 years old, he developed a product because he was suffering from electromagnetic frequencies. And he was taught, and I don't want to go into too much into this, but he was taught, you could call it a vision, you could say whatever you want, but he went through a process and he learned how to do something that people on this planet didn't know how to do. And so he created a device. And so a very special young man. But this device we call key devices, and it's the waveguard technology. And it's the only proven technology in the world. In other words, we currently have 13 studies, some human studies and some what we call technical studies, when we looked at frequency bands, what we do to them. But what we proved is that we depolarize the radiation itself, and we lower the excess signal strength. We don't need 3 volts per meter of electricity in the air to carry on a phone conversation, to watch a Netflix movie. We don't need all this excess voltage in the air, but that voltage causes problems to us. And so our device is the key, and I'll show you an example of one here. Pardon my forehead in your face. But this is a key shield, for example. And this will cover a 16-foot by 16-foot room, 225 square feet, and it will protect you against Wi-Fi, cellular, 3G, 4G, 5G, and on. And we've actually tested from 600 megahertz up to 40,000. We're the only company in the world that's done a study on up to 40,000 megahertz. And so what's interesting is our device protected more against 40,000 than it did 6,000, which will be what the US will use, and what it did for 1800 and 1900, which is 4G. But this device lowers the signal strength in the room by 30%. And the key home cell and the key max reduce it by 74%. When we went to 40,000 megahertz or 40G, it reduced by 80%. So even more performance with the higher frequencies. So we're yet to know how widespread the effects will be on human beings because it has not been fully launched. We currently are using 4G frequencies to broadcast 5G signals, but the United States will use 6,000 megahertz or 6G to broadcast real 5G, and it's just beginning now to be broadcasted. One of my dear friends, Lee Cowden, got really harmed in Arizona. He was in Phoenix, and he almost thought he was going to die. And he told me, Paul, I didn't know I was going to make it. I thought I was going to die. I was like literally praying to my maker going, if there's anything I've forgotten that I've done, please, forgive me, right? Because he didn't know if he was going to wake up in the morning. I saw him at Truth About Cancer last year because I'm one of the speakers in Truth About Cancer and in Truth About Cancer documentaries. But he was telling me, I haven't been the same ever since I was exposed to that. And so I went to my room and got him the key shield, and he put it in his room and said, and the next morning he came out to me, what the heck was that? I have not slept like that ever since that. I feel amazing this morning, and I haven't felt like this since that occurrence. And of course, he's a dear friend and a wonderful medical doctor, but I'm just telling you that more and more people have been affected. And these are brilliant individuals who have lost capacity in their brain and cognitive function, but yet when they get our device, they get it back. So people ask me, because obviously you see no wires coming off of this. You don't plug this in. It creates its own electricity inside because it has a conductive liquid, almost like a battery. Batteries are liquid and they create electricity and you recharge them. Well, this one will function for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And it will create a very small electrical current, which releases electrons, and it creates a toroidal field so that anything passing into that field will be changed to depolarize radiation and to not be harmed by EMF. So when the electromagnetic fields penetrate the field that we're creating in the device, it changes it so it doesn't harm you. You can still use your phone, because obviously my phone is working, but you're not harmed by your technology. So you can have your technology, but not be harmed by it. And again, this is a mobile unit. I've taken it on planes and I've gone all over. It can go in a cup holder in a car, but we have much bigger units. We have a key home cell, which will do a 25-foot radius, so a 50 by 50-foot area, and then up 16 feet and down 16 feet for a 3-story home. And then we have the Key Max, which can do up to 2 million square feet, 20-story building, 100,000 square feet per floor. It's pretty amazing what can happen. And so this is a very different technology in that it creates its own power. You don't plug it in. It releases electrons, negatively charged electrons, like grounding, right? That's why you would go to the forest or the ocean to get negative electrons. We also use sacred geometry inside the unit. So there's many different things that come from the key devices, the waveguard technology. And of course, on our website, you can read the studies. The last study that we did was on wound healing and how fibroblasts are harmed by cell phone exposure. So we did a study with 3 cell cultures. One of them, no EMF exposure at all. And the wound healed completely in 24 hours. So that was your baseline. That's the control, right? 24-hour complete wound closure. Then we took a cell phone and exposed the cell cultures for 2 hours and then left it alone for 22 more hours. So you have that same 24-hour period that was our control, but you only had 10% wound healing with the same cell cultures. So the body lost 90% of its ability to heal itself with an 2-hour exposure to a cell phone. Now, when we took a key shield and put it in the same area, the body healed 90%. With the same cell phone exposure, the body healed 90%, so you only lost 10%. These are the kind of studies we're doing to show biological effects on the body and how the body does with EMFs and without, and then with EMF and our technology. And the next study that we're doing, it's halfway finished right now, is with Cleveland Clinic.
Oh, wow.
on fertility issues caused by EMFs. So they did a study 8 years ago showing that sperm swims in circles when it's around EMFs. And so it brought to light that maybe some fertility issues are simply EMF exposure. So they're currently doing a study right now with our technology, a redo of that same study to show what's going to happen to the sperm and fertility when you have our technology and EMFs. And so it's very exciting because that'll be published soon. And who knows, maybe some people that have fertility issues can simply get a device in their room and then have children. What a blessing, right?
Yeah. No, there's so much, unfortunately, the increase in infertility these days is just on the rise. So this is just a, wonderful silver lining, right, to this technology and its application. And no, that, I mean, it seems like you've honed in on two really like very fundamental kind of common denominator issues in many pathologies and many illnesses that we see. So the hydrogen gas aspect through the hydrogen water, and then really transforming EMF so it's not harming our health. So I'm so glad we connected, and I'm excited to continue to share your work and these resources with my patients and my community. And Paul, is there anything else on your heart or on your mind that you want to share with the audience that is listening today?
Well, I just want them to know that, I didn't wake up one day and say, man, I want to make a water machine. It didn't happen that way. I tell you what, most great inventions come out of necessity, right? And I have an amazing wife. Her name is Jacqueline, and we've been married almost 27 years. She's the love of my life and my queen. And really, the first 10 years of our marriage were horrible because I would lose her 1 week out of the month for when she was on her menstrual cycle. She would just be doubled over in pain. And she was highly anemic. She would faint. I mean, it was just not a good situation. I was working with patients with diabetes at the time. So my scope of practice, I was focused on preventing decubitus ulcers and limb amputations or foot amputations. That's where I was focused in helping people with diabetes not get their feet cut off, okay? So I wanted to help her, though. She's the love of my life, and any good husband would want to help their wife if they're in pain and they're doing things. So I was doing research and trying to figure out how I could help her. And that's really how the water came about, is me helping her. And after she started with the water, it was 6 months later, her menstrual cycle was normalized.
Wow.
And she was no longer anemic. It was just incredible. And it boggled my mind. So then I started asking myself, what happens if I share it with some of the patients with diabetes? And within 3 to 5 days, their blood sugar levels were normal. Not all of them, but a majority of them. And here's the deal, Christine. When you watch this happen to someone you love, and you watch this happen to individuals that you personally know, in other words, it wasn't someone else telling me that they saw it. It was me seeing it with my own eyes. You have to do something about that information. You have to do something because there are millions of people with diabetes in this country. There are millions of women that have gynecological issues and are suffering every single month of their life. And I just said, if this is going to help my wife, that's great. And I could stop right there. But what about all the other people? What about all the other people that need help? So for me, the thing that I'm most passionate about is prevention of pathology itself. In other words, I don't want people to have diseases unnecessarily. And so that's where I'm at. And that's why I do what I do every day, is for those that don't know how to help themselves, for those that suffer and don't know what to do about it, or maybe they've tried everything else on the planet. That's what I do. And I don't like to Band-Aid problems. I like to get to the source problem in the body and fix that, because I believe the body is supposed to heal itself if it has the right tools and abilities. So that's where I'm at. That's how I'm plugged in. And I really am just here to serve and love and lift people and help them enjoy their divine potential and experience joy in life, because that's what we should have a lot of. There's going to be some tough times, and that's part of the deal, but we should have joy a lot more, I think, than we do.
Oh, well, no, thank you so much for sharing that heartfelt message, and that you're obviously in your purpose and in your passion and helping so many people, and that's what this is all about, right? And
Yes.
So, Paul, how can people find out more about you and your company?
Synergy Science is the company name, Synergyscience.com, SYNERGY, synergyscience.com is our website. There are studies there. There are videos there. There's all kinds of things for them to be educated appropriately. People that want to understand hydrogen, they can go to hydrogenstudies.com and they can read the studies that are there. There's over 750 studies at this point on hydrogen, helping with 170 human disease models. So there's tremendous science there. But of course, they can always call our company. The number's on our website, but it's 1-800-337-7017. I don't want this to be kind of a commercial, but I do want to help people, and so they need to have a call to action if they're gonna get helped. But they can try any of our products. We have a 30-day opportunity for them to try it and return it if they don't feel that that's what they need in their life. So again, we try to make it as easy as possible. We're in Utah, and so we are in the United States, but here we are to serve you.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you so much for this awesome information and being part of the summit. And I really appreciate your time. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's an honor. Thank you.